Hey, what's up, everyone? You're currently tuned into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 in Santa Barbara and netnetradio.com, Tijuana. Today, Lai Talk and I welcome regional Astral Dream saxophonist powerhouse Cole Pulice to the zone. Their new album, Scary, is out on Friday, September 30th on Moonglyph, tape shipping at the end of the month. Vinyl near the end of the year. How you doing, Cole?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm really stoked you hit me up.
I know, like we were saying before, dude, we've been listening to your records and like stuff you've been like associated with for a while, and you've been on the list. So we're like stoked that we can finally have you here.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're Oakland based right now, right?
I am. Yeah. I moved to Oakland from Minneapolis just over a year ago. So at the towards the end of the summer of 2021.
Cool. How's the heat been there?
Mostly it's been okay. It's been really hot the past few days, but like, as you might know, there's like something about the Bay that like tends to kind of always stay between like 55 and 75. It's like always kind of.
Has it actually been like nice there? Wow.
San Francisco says no.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it does get hit with heat waves. Like right now we're in like for sure the middle of a heat wave, but, it's wild. Like the weather here, like the amount of it can fluctuate like 25 degrees in the course of like a day sometimes.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the joke with everybody. You need to have like a ton of layers and like plan to be really cold in the morning and at night and like hot during the middle of the day. So, yeah.
That's funny, dude. Well, I'm glad you're able to, I guess, like stay relatively cool compared to us. Out here, I live like I don't know if you're familiar with Los Angeles, but do you know the Valley in LA?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sort of like in a suburb,
the northern edge.
Yeah, the northern edge. It's actually considered the next county over from LA. But anyways, it was like 110 this weekend. It was wild, like to the point where like I walked outside at like 10 and I was like, why am I so uncomfortable right now?
Sacramento, I saw on the map. It was like 115 yesterday.
Oh my God, that is crazy. Yeah, wild. Climate change. People don't believe it. You just got to walk outside at this point.
Totally.
Anyways, what have you been up to in 2022? We're about 9 months in. What have you been? Have you picked up like any new hobbies?
Did you fulfill your New Year's resolution?
Yeah. Did you fulfill your New Year's resolution yet?
That's a really good question. I didn't make any resolutions for myself this past year, and I don't even do that like
smart
consciously. I feel like it wasn't like a conscious decision to not do it. Just with the way the world's been and like how disconnected I think I've felt personally because of pandemic stuff, and also just like societally how disconnected stuff. It's for some reason it just like making resolutions just sort of like
it just didn't come to mind. Yeah,
didn't happen.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of great like hiking and stuff like in the Bay.
For sure.
I've had some like fun music projects I've been working on, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I got super into jujitsu.
That's sick.
Oh
yeah,
the Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So like when I was living in Minneapolis, I started doing it a little bit, and then like pandemic happened and everything like shut down, and then I started doing it with one of my roommates.
Yeah.
Who she bought mats. She's really good at it, and like she like bought mats so we could just train in the backyard. So like I did that for fun, like while I was living there, and then I think in like February or March, like once the kind of like second wave of COVID stuff kind of fell off, like after that like winter burst happened, I started training at like a place out here, and like in California, there's like tons. You like can't throw a rock in California without hitting like a world-class jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, that's been really fun.
So I guess, I don't understand how jiu-jitsu works, but I guess are there like ranks or whatever, like other
there's
martial
like
arts? Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
That's
and like, but it's like all discretionary. So like everybody trains together, like all the like white belts and like the black belt, everyone trains together. And like the nice thing about jiu-jitsu is it's all grappling. So there's like no striking. So like you don't really have to worry about like head trauma to the same degree as you would in like other contact sports or
sick.
Something. And so you can like right away, you can like spar, like, because it's just all, and of course, it's like, you still want to be safe to spar with, and you want to roll and like spar with people that are safe to roll with. But, that's like something that was really appealing for me about it. It's like I'm really like touchy about head trauma stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, my friends are like super, I have some friends that are really into like that UFC fighting, like totally. MMA. Yeah, dude, like they're always telling me like, yeah, like these people do this for a couple years and then like, I guess there's like a condition, like
CTE.
Yeah, that's what it is. CTE. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, CTE, like your brain just gets like messed up.
Which actually like brain science, like the more like I've read about it too. It's like, I mean, American football is like really gnarly in terms of CTE. Sure. And even stuff God. Like, you can get it on like, from a lot of stuff, even like, what are those things called? You like ride in the like water jet ski?
Jet ski?
Yeah. Like the impact of like jet skis, like hitting waves and stuff.
Really? Wow.
Like you don't need to, brain trauma stuff is just actually way more delicate than I think we knew for a long time.
Yeah.
So like, but yeah.
I can remember watching in 2013 a Frontline documentary on CTE and just how just an absolute cluster it was, because the NFL was hiding a lot of that information.
Oh, were they really?
Talking about it. And then I think last year there was an HBO Real Sports. One of the HBO programs had an episode on football bros that go to South America and get experimental hallucinogenic treatments that do help, or how psychedelics can help to kind of heal parts of the brain and circumvent CTE, but still.
Yeah, there's so much. It's like we know more about the like deep sea than we do about the human brain, and we know like not a lot about the deep sea.
I know.
So, like
we're learning each year.
We're learning, yeah,
each year. Yeah, that's interesting though. I didn't realize that CTE was so easy to get, and then also CTE is like, I guess like people that are in contact sports or whoever has CTE, you get like depression and stuff from it, right? Like,
skateboarder. It's like, the brain is like super fragile.
Yeah.
And like,
goodness.
Yeah. And it can cause like all sorts of like mental health problems if you're not careful. So, I mean, again, it's like, I feel like sometimes even like bringing up jiu-jitsu, it's like for people, like contact sports can like sound kind of intense or whatever, but actually like in terms of like intense, like athletics, it's actually quite like safe for the brain.
Yeah.
Which has been really, and it's like, there's also like, there's like a real like poetic beauty to it in a way, because it's so like, you're just like, it's like physically so intimate. You're like really like tied up. It's like you're playing chess with each of your limbs at once. Like you're playing a separate game of chess with each of your limbs. And then you're like also playing this like macro game of chess. So it's just like, it's like really, it feels like when you're doing it, it feels really like puzzly. Like, when you're trying to like figure out like the person's game that you're like sparring against, like you need to keep like kind of like assessing like how they're responding to how you're moving, and they're also assessing your responses to their movements. So you're like setting traps, and it's really wild, and it's like really engrossing in a way that like feels really meditative, and it's like a really nice like kind of mind body thing. Like you are like, it's really, you can't like not be totally present when you're doing it, which is like a huge appeal to me for it, that it's like really easy to kind of like take that time to like do something that's really occupying and like kind of like unifying my brain body thing all at once.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like that would be a ton of fun, and a good way, I guess, to just like get things off your mind too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
To focus on that. So I guess like what belt are you?
So this is like the complicated thing. It's like I'm a like white belt, like a 0 stripe white belt. So you get these like stripes in between belts that are discretionary from the person you're training with, and just to kind of like demarcate where you're at. And it also lets other people know, like if you go and spar at like a different open mat or like a different gym, like people can like see, oh, this person's like a 2-stripe white belt. They kind of know what they're doing or whatever. But like I trained a ton with my roommate on our own over that like pandemic year. And like, I'm very autodidact oriented. Like I learn the best when I can like get my fingers dirty and like teach myself. And so like, I'm like a 0-stripe white belt, but I like,
you know what you're doing.
It's like kind of a joke. It's like kind of become this like running joke with like my teammates, like the people that I roll with. Or like when people come visit the gym or whatever, it's like, which is like, I don't know. It's like kind of it's kind of fun in a way or whatever too. It's like to get like people like blue belts or purple or like people will kind of roll their eyes at like having to roll with like a 0-stripe white belt and then like very quickly be like, oh, you kind of know what you're doing. Yeah. We're good. Like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick, dude. That's cool. So I guess like your roommate couldn't like, I guess, progress you just because it's not like an official like dojo or something. Yeah, like
that would be really funny.
They did not have the jujitsu scroll.
No, totally.
So I guess it's a martial arts, right? So I guess like if someone came up and like, I don't know, attacked you or something, could you like take them down?
Well, it's like a sport. I mean, still, that's like, I don't know. I'm like.
So is it almost like
I get like weary of like trying to translate that stuff into real world application or whatever, because it's like, so let me put it to you this way. It's like doing it has like, it's made me feel a lot more comfortable in a lot of different ways. It's like it's like really changed my relationship with my body. And it's like made me feel a lot more comfortable in my body in like a lot of different ways, including like, I feel like more comfortable being able to like know that in like very physically compromised situations that I'm actually like safe and I know how to like weasel my way in or out of it or whatever. So like, it's like you train takedowns, you train like submissions, you train like traps and all this sort of stuff. But like, I think actually the most important thing is like, it actually just teaches to get like good at it. You have to get really comfortable staying really calm in like moments of intensity. And so I feel like actually if like something were to like quote unquote like go down like outside, it actually, I feel like a good sign of being like really well trained or something is that you actually don't
freak out or like act like upon like
I would actually feel very like it's like because I feel so much more confident and like safe in my body from doing it, I feel like I wouldn't actually freak out and feel like I need to like defend myself or whatever. I feel like it's like I've heard people talk about that like older people talk about that at gyms where it's like, oh yeah, one time I got held up or something and someone was like, give me your wallet, and I was like, yeah, you like realize like I know all this like technique and all this stuff, but it's just not worth it. And I actually just kept my cool and was like, yeah, take it, it's like all good, whatever. That's like the kind of like Buddha, like
I know, right? Yeah, version, that's sick. Like, no, I think that's cool though. Like, it like trains you in a way to just like stay calm, rather than I guess react and turn to violence or whatever.
Totally, exactly. Yeah. That's actually good. That's actually a really good way of putting it. I feel like it really teaches you, or if one is predisposed, I feel I've really taken from it. It like teaches you to like respect the limitations of the body and to really like. It actually like I feel like it drives it's driven me like it's like you respect violence. I know in a way that's to say in other words that's
it's
like
a loaded statement, but I see what you mean.
You learn to like respect it which is to say that it's like not worth like people that are like getting in like I don't know like getting in fights outside of a bar or whatever. It's like not that's like the inverse of like what
exactly. Yeah,
I feel like you're trying to train or like
Yeah, it's very like, I don't know, sounds like an elder is like teaching you this or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like,
that's exactly
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Or like, what's that movie like Friday? This is a really, really dumb analogy, by the way. But like, you know, that movie Friday where the dad is like, put the gun down, Craig, put the gun down.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, something like that.
Totally.
Anyways, what else have you been up to?
So I put out, you held up that tape the Living in Space and Time.
Yeah.
I put that out with my dear friend Lynn Avery, who is from Minneapolis as well. I totally. Lynn currently lives out here in the Bay. We moved out here around the same time, and we're both in Oakland.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Sick. That's cool.
Yeah. And then I put out this record with my friend Nat Harvey, they're based in Duluth, and they lived in Portland for a while.
The one on World Canyon.
Oh, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Sick.
And then I have Scry. Then Scry is coming out on Moonglip at the end of the month.
Scry. Yeah. Scry is the name.
Scry. Yeah.
It is not a scary album. It's not losing any. Okay, we're gonna call it Scry.
Oh, that's why you said scary.
Yeah, we thought it was.
I thought you were referring. No, because Scry is sort of like a. It's sort of like a. I don't want to say pseudoscience. It's sort of like an alchemical, like kind of like magic thing. So I thought you were like referencing.
Okay, because that explains the HPMP track. I got that, the hit point, magic point.
Yeah.
Thing that was going there. But I looked at it and I'm like, Cole is naming this scary.
I know, that's what we both thought. Scary.
It was without a vowel, just like how they say sorry in some of those old Star Runner.
Yeah. That's funny. I actually kind of like that reading of it, to be honest. But yeah, it's like it's like to scry is basically like this sort of like antiquated like word meaning to like foretell the future specifically by like looking into like a piece of reflective material. So like into like traditionally into like a crystal ball. Like if you're looking in a crystal ball to like foretell, to like look into the future, you're scrying. So like, or like, I don't know, did y'all, or like, but it can also be, it's like any reflective surface. So like looking into a mirror, or like looking into like a shard of broken glass, like, or like, I don't know, did you ever play like Magic the Gathering? Like
my brother did, but
okay, so
the whole thing makes sense. Okay, I can.
So like another example would be like there was something, at least I remember, there was like something you could do in Magic where like certain cards would have the power to scry, and like if you would activate it, it would allow you to like look forward in your like deck. You could see the cards that were coming. So like. Yeah, it's a sort of like antiquated, sort of like alchemical, like soothsaying, like magic, like vibe thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, dude. Okay, so I guess before we talk more about, we get specifically into the records and stuff, we did want to ask, can you give us like some detail on like how you got involved in like DIY or like some of like your, I guess, like music upbringings? Like how did you start playing music and stuff?
Yeah. So I started like playing saxophone when I was like, whenever you kind of start like school age, like
middle school.
Yeah, like exactly middle school. And like, I played in like some rock bands with my friends, but like when you're like a saxophone player or like a trumpet player and you're trying to play in rock bands with your friends, like
it's gonna be rough.
Especially like in the late 90s, it was like you played in ska bands.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like played in a bunch of ska bands, which was like Minneapolis like scene, like ska hardcore bands, which was like fun.
That's so sick, actually. That's cool.
Had a band like Saccharine Trust kind of made its way over to you or something like that?
I don't know that. I'm gonna check it out. Hold on.
Oh my good. No, and that was a band which added a saxophone player by their third release, and like that was SSC. That was West Coast hardcore in there with Black Flag and Minutemen. They were on that label, but then they had a saxophone player, and it was like, they're making
that's sick.
So it's so wild to think like y'all hadn't even heard that hadn't translated over there. You were just straight up third wave ska kind of going that gamut.
like Real Big Fish.
That's so sick. That is so cool.
It was like and At the Drive-In, like those kinds of like post-hardcore kind of vibes, Sparta, and those kinds of bands. So like, I did that, and then like I transferred high schools to a school that like didn't have a band program, so like I had like stopped kind of doing that, but I was still playing in like some like rock bands and doing like kind of like ambient like improvised music.
That's
fun,
cool. That's
experimental music. And then like I would just I did a ton of like improvised music stuff with like friends and colleagues and stuff around the Midwest for a long time. And then like was always really down to like record on folks' music. That's how I met Lynn. Someone had recommended, actually the other person in LCM on that Signal Quest record, Mitch, had recommended me to Lynn to do some recording on the Ice Blink record, which is how we met. So like,
interesting.
Yeah, I guess it was like it was like a lot of, and then like, yeah, it was like a weird path. Cause then in my like early and mid 20s, I was doing tons of like freelance, like touring. I was like touring with like R&B bands and like
nice
indie rock bands and stuff. I was doing a lot, which I still do some of that too. But yeah, it's kind of been like, I feel like I didn't start doing like my like solo music vibe stuff and like more collaborative, the sort of like ambient experimental stuff I do. Like I didn't start doing that until I started doing less of the like freelance work, which is like that kind of age old like conundrum of like, obviously, yeah, it's just, you have to like to make room for yourself, you have to like make room for yourself, you know. And like it's really easy for your calendar, for your time, especially as a saxophone player, it's like really easy for your calendar to get full playing like other people's stuff. And I think there was a period in my life where that was really working for me and I was having a lot of fun. And like there's still times in my life that I do that and it feels like a lot of fun, but also it's rewarding in a different way to like write and record music of your own.
Oh, for sure.
Too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I guess like when you were like, I guess like touring and stuff, you were saying freelancing, was this like your main source of income too?
Yeah. So I started in my in 2015, I started a PhD program at the University of Minnesota in cultural studies and comparative literature.
That's sick.
And I was like, for a few years before that, I had just been doing like freelance saxophone stuff. And then once I started doing grad school, I was like balancing both. And then I took a couple years off from grad school because I had some like touring contracts that were like taking up a lot of time. It just like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they were really, my grad program was like super flexible about that. Yeah. And so then I've kind of just been like balancing both, like ever since, like off and on, I guess, like kind of like jumping between both worlds. So
are you still doing your PhD program? Did you get your PhD?
I'm in my last year of it now.
Dude, that's
and I'm
sick.
like figuring out, I mean, the job market for like higher ed stuff right now is like, it's always like kind of wild, but especially with like the like sort of like financial, socio-political climate or whatever, it's just like a whole nother beast. So I'm like navigating it and figuring it out, and also like really enjoying continuing to do the music stuff. That's cool. That's sick. So, wait, go ahead. Go ahead. No, I was just going to ask about, your, like, so is this both of your relationship to like college stuff through the radio station? Yeah. So we both graduated a while back. I graduated in December 2019, but our radio station is also like a community station. You know what I mean? So it's like based on the college, but anybody can be like a programmer, and I live in the area. So like I just continue to do my show. And then cool. Yeah. And then Maddie lives in San Diego, but they opened up the option to do remote shows during COVID. So yeah, Maddie still does their show and then also joins me on my show. So that's awesome. Yeah.
And then goodness, I'm also a graduate student as well up at San Jose State University for science. We're on a San Jose University Zoom call. Right on. So
I love it.
As it goes. But
anyways, so when you like moved to Oakland, was that like recently? When did that happen?
Yeah, it was the end of last year. And it was like I got a fellowship from my grad department at the University of Minnesota. So like I was kind of had the flexibility to be able to live somewhere else. And also like the third person, so Lynn and I both lived in Minneapolis, and the third person from that Signal Quest record lived in Oakland, and we were like finishing up another record with those three together. And so like it was kind of fun to be out here and be able to do that too, and also just get like a like change of scenery. I'd never lived anywhere outside of Minneapolis, and it felt like, especially with the fellowship, it was like a good opportunity to try. And the other big thing was with the music world sort of like shutting down for COVID pandemic stuff. Yeah. My calendar was really empty for the first time in like a long time. Whereas you know, it's really easy for suddenly you have things booked like several months, sometimes a year in advance.
For sure.
Like, it's just easy to feel really like kind of like planted because of that, and like hard to make moving decisions when you have stuff in the future. So I was like, yeah, it seemed like kind of like a confluence of like a lot of variables that kind of made it seem like a good moment to try living somewhere else. And I had already like a good group of friends out here. So one of my best friends from growing up, she's a bass player, and we used to actually like playing those ska bands I was mentioning. We were like in those together. Like, and then also the Mitch from the LCM band, and some other folks from Minneapolis that lived out here too. So
oh wow, that's sick.
It was easy. Yeah, it was really great to be able to like fall into like a music community right away, and like a friend group, like not have to start from scratch. And,
do you have to travel back to Minneapolis for school or anything?
I'm like figuring that out. I'm like, this semester I'm have a remote TA-ship, so I'm all good. Like I'm just doing it all over Zoom. Yeah. But not really. I've gone back a few times for like some music stuff. Yeah, but it's been actually worked out pretty well so far. I haven't really felt that like
tied down, having to go back or whatever. Like, yeah, that's sick. So, how has like the Oakland scene been now compared to what Minneapolis was when you left it?
Is there a different energy per se?
Yeah.
Say again?
Is there a different energy per se?
That's a good question. So, well, I have like a lot of love for both in a lot of different ways. I think socially, one thing that's like interesting that I've actually talked to like a lot of friends back in Minneapolis and like a lot of folks out here about is like, I feel like I've heard a lot of complaints from people especially when they move to Minneapolis from somewhere else, where they're like, it's like so hard to like meet people here. It feels like everybody is like kind of like in their groups, you know, it can feel hard to like break in. And like, I haven't felt that in California. And in part, I think that's because I already had some really dear friends out here, which kind of like, you know, gets you situated a lot faster.
That's cool.
But I think one thing that it was like interesting to think about that I've been talking with some folks about is like, it feels like even just in like the, you know, a little bit over a year that I've been here within like the group of friends that I have out here, people are like coming and going. Like people move to LA, or they move like, you know, up to like the Pacific Northwest, they moved to New York, or people are moving to California from other spots. There's like more of a circulation of folks, like constantly. Yeah. People are like kind of coming and going. There's like a lot of people that aren't from here that live here, and a lot of people that are from here that live here. Whereas like in Minneapolis, I feel like there's a lot less circulation of people. Like people go and like sometimes come back, but like it doesn't maybe have as much of like that like constant sort of circulation of people, which is, say in other words, that like my like sort of like armchair philosophy talking with my friends about it is like, it feels like maybe it's been easier for folks to kind of like find community and break into stuff here, just because it's more part of like culturally the social boundaries are a little more permeable because folks are like used to people coming and going. Whereas like in Minneapolis, like folks are friends with the people that they've known since they were like kids, and like they have their like group of friends, and like that's it, you know, or they move there for college or whatever. So it's like and I think there's a lot of ways that can be really good and like beautiful in a way, like for relationships too. But it's just like the social boundaries maybe seem a little bit like more like tree bark.
Okay.
Like,
yeah. No, totally.
Minneapolis, and like a little bit less like permeable, for better or for worse. It's just different, you know. So that's maybe one thing I would say. And like, but the music scenes are both like really beautiful and in a lot of different ways. Like Minneapolis has an amazing improvised music community. Obviously, like up in Oakland. There's like a just stellar community of folks around Mills. R.I.P. Mills.
Oh right, I actually just met someone from Mills that I hosted for a gig like a week or two ago. But anyways, yeah.
Oh, who was it?
Lula Aspland or Kyle Bates.
Yeah,
he has a project called Drowse. Yeah,
totally, exactly. So funny, like Nat, the person I put out the Oral Canyon tape with, is friends with both of them. There's like a Minneapolis connection. Oh, because also Nat used to live in Portland.
Oh, I see. That's what the connection
which is where they're, So they were actually like, Nat was like, So there's like a funny like Minneapolis Portland connection with those folks. Too.
There's also,
I actually met them at Mills.
There's also this other guy that I hosted, Adam Hirsch. He also went to Mills. He does like,
I know Adam's name, but I haven't met Adam.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Mills College? Are you talking about again? Or?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. In Oakland,
which is gonna close very soon.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I thought it already closed, but
not yet.
Interesting.
It's like transitioning into like a different. It's still unclear what it's going to be, but it got bought by Northeastern.
Oh, interesting.
That stuff is so tragic to me. That's an incredible university right there, and the amount of music and people that came out of Mills, because I think they're giving out their last degrees in 2023.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
oh, wild.
And that's gonna kill a tier of musicians, I feel. I mean, some of the most recent, like, well-known musicians that came out of that was Julia Holter and Anna Roxanne.
Oh, really? Anna Roxanne,
big names,
sick.
but, like,
I didn't know they went to Mills.
They did their undergrad work at Mills College.
Oh, funny.
It's also, that was another thing, is that Mills was all women for undergrad, and then graduate students was open to anyone, but, like, damn.
Totally.
Goodness.
Well, that's cool. I guess, should we jump into some of your releases and stuff? Talk a little bit more about those. Maddie,
sure.
do you want to take that away?
I'll take this one over. So, past couple of years here, the Pulice name has been showing up on tapes and tape labels ranging from, just to name a few, we got Forged Artifacts, Orange Milk, and to Moonglyph, which, in particular, you've sort of entangled yourself in kind of a quintet of releases with Lynn Avery. That includes the LCM tape on Orange Milk. That includes the Ice Blink cassette that she did in 2020 that's being reissued on vinyl, I believe, right about next couple months.
Oh, so. Really? That's sick.
And then on top of that, you have your first solo tape for Moonglyph. You have the Lynn Avery and Cole Pulice To Live and Die in Time and Space cassette. And then
finally,
that brings us to Scurry, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Scry.
Goodness. I am.
It's a weird word.
Brings us to Scry. And a lot of stuff that I noted when I was looking through, because many of these tapes either A, came out in 2020, or B, contain material that were recorded in early 2020 up through kind of the start of the pandemic. So Scry then stands, especially based on what I've read so far, material that dates to 2019, but also to 2022, kind of just in that range of getting things assembled.
Yeah, totally.
And I guess what I'm curious about is, do you kind of view Scry as a culmination of this era of music you've been putting towards?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, the funny thing is some of it I started making like before Gloam had come out, the record I made before my first solo record on Moonglyph. And I feel like the like interesting thing and kind of like odd thing about Scry for me is it's like, I wasn't like necessarily setting out to like make a record in the sense that Gloam had come out and I didn't make the conscious decision like, okay, now I need to set another record and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Whereas like Gloam really felt that way, where it's like I built this kind of instrument, like very specific electroacoustic saxophone setup, and like made a bunch of pieces for that like really specific setup. So in that sense, Gloam was really like, I think a way that I tried to describe it before is it was like a lot of different windows into the same house. Like,
okay,
it's a lot of different variations of pieces for like the same setup. You know, it's sort of like different perspectives on like a single piece of sculpture or something like that. Whereas like Scry is the way that it was made is like a little bit more kaleidoscopic. And I think, you know, there's like some things on it that are like kind of more improvised music-y, some things that are like sort of sound collage-y, some things that are like really wind synth heavy, like VCB rack wind synth. But it's just, it felt like it was one of those things that like it came into view as I was doing it. So like I suddenly was like kind of going through all this music I had just been working on for no reason other than that's just how I fill my time. And then suddenly it kind of like I like saw the thing after it was done, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Just kind of a realization. You've made all this stuff over a course of time, and then you're looking at it and thinking, there's some stuff I could definitely intermingle or kind of remix here, but there is something cohesively here, and you're starting to hear an idea in your mind.
And I was like seeing, I saw the like through line in it or something like that, like, because it happened. I mean, you know, I recorded some of it in Minneapolis. I recorded some of it out here in Oakland. It covers like a really wild transitional period for the world, but you know, also both on a micro scale for like my life and also like a macro scale for like what we were all going through. Like, I started working on it before coronavirus stuff, and it's coming out now, and we're still kind of in it, but the world's a lot different than it was, and like, yeah. So it's like a lot of different things. Yeah. But like in a way that's really feels really cohesive to me. Yeah.
A lot of, I remember I was reading through and I found this to be really fascinating because I'm having my own era with them right now is, again, you had mentioned some of the electrical acoustic works of Paulino Oliveras. Yeah. And then you mentioned also John Hassel. Yeah. And then you had mentioned Harold Budd.
Oh my gosh.
So amongst David Berman, and I just recently heard On the Other Ocean. So
that's the one for me. Like that record, I feel like people like I've had friends joke with me that my music is David Berman core. Like that's like, and it is like it like really that On the Other Ocean record like is one of the most in terms of like the way I think about music. I feel like it really like shattered my brain and like put it back together in like a certain way that like it is like it's one of the most influential pieces of music.
I just talked with someone who was kayaking to it, and it blows my mind. They had never heard it, and this person was hearing it for the first time. And
it's so good.
It's some of the most utilitarian ambient I've ever heard. Amongst also, it blows my mind. It's like this is 1978, and this 1977 actually, I believe, and he's just like very much kind of leading you just to put it out there. There's something very, very earnest and honest about that. I really do love it. And seeing all of those artists get mentioned in a release that stems only about as long as Hassel's Fourth World Music Volume 2. This is a 28-minute release you've got with about 3 or 4 long forms and several smaller short form pieces that kind of, they're very freewheeling and fleet-footed, I guess is
totally.
Again, when you were sequencing it, did you just kind of think like, I've got these long pieces, I've got these smaller stuff, but all of it is deep listening music? Is that what you were kind of entangling or imagining?
Exactly, like precisely that. Like even the like small stuff, like there's a couple tracks on it that are like a minute long. Like even that to me, it like feel it's like I don't know, like world building is always really important to me, and like it like feels very like world buildy to me. And I mean, I also have like the way I work on stuff is like sometimes really inefficient. So like there was I think which one was it? I think probably both, but for sure HPMP. When I was like working on that, I did like no joke, like hundreds of takes, and like it's like it's not like it's not something that I'm like, it's actually like very inefficient, but like like whereas when you listen to it, like you're hearing like 60 seconds of this like kind of like half melody, half like kind of like atmospheric thing, like this thing happening. Like when I was recording it, for me, it was like an experience of deep, like, I feel like my brain sort of went off, would like turn off. And then like, I would sort of like black out and then like black in and be on like take 250 and just be like, Cole, what are you doing? Like, you have to stop, but like, it becomes like, I don't know. It's easy for me to like kind of fall down spirals, which can be actually a hindrance to getting stuff done. Like at a certain point, it's like I need to tell myself like you need to just be done and move on. So which is to say, in other words, that like, doing it felt like oddly like it was sort of like psychedelic or like meditative or deep listening in a way of like just like getting lost in it for like hours at a time until like the right one, however you want to define that, until it like kind of happens. And like, I feel like often it's like, I had to just like get out of my own way and just like let it happen instead of like trying to think about it too hard. Like, so yeah, I see all of the pieces on there as like part of the same spectrum of like, sort of like, deep listening music. And
then on top of that, and this is something that's kind of emerged in between, because a lot of the stuff that you had originally, and you've even up to this year with To Live and Die in Time and Space, it's all 2020 music that kind of, there's been an ambient jazz buzzword or kind of shorthand that's emerged as a result of this. But I often, especially after listening to the LCM release, I don't always feel like this quite articulates what is at play here. And I'm thinking of some of the wording that Keith Rankin used to describe a recent release he had, Goo Age's Open Zone. And Keith had described it as just a goo core, which was more of a freewheeling response to noise music that is much more playful and much less about abrasive textures and more kind of just about, I don't know, Plato type stuff, let's call it. And
goo core,
as he
I love that. Okay.
And listening again back to Live and Die in Time and Space and to Scry, there's, especially with these 1 minute pieces on Scry, this is some really playful music. And even though there is like, I can see why Matthew Sage has given it a low key endorsement to Scry so far. Because there's stuff on here that is really lovely jazz music that reminds me of Fabucci, but it's also extremely, I think, playful, kind of just like whatever noise. And
totally.
I'm wondering what you kind of feel about how when you're making these 1 to 2 minute short form pieces, what the approach is there, what the process is.
Yeah, honestly, I have like a lot to say. I mean, I really love a lot of the points you make, and I want to get back to the Open Zone, like Goocore, the like label thing, because I've actually I'm going to come back to that in a minute, so don't let me forget.
Please do. We will get there.
Regarding like the couple of like really short tracks on Scry, my like honestly, like I was like I feel like I tinker a lot. Like I don't like sit down and like compose. I'm just like, especially with like electroacoustic stuff, I'm just like always tinkering. So I was like tinkering with this VCV rack. This like program set up with my WinSynth that was like, I basically built this instrument in it that was like responding to everything I was playing. So I was like kind of in like a sort of like dialogue with this like computer module thing that I built, which was something I was interested in trying because that's what David Behrman did in a lot of David Behrman's work, especially on The Other Ocean. And then all that happened, I just got really like kind of obsessed with like tinkering with this thing. And then eventually, after like hours and hours of doing all these takes, there was just this like crystallization of it in this like short piece of music. And I was just like I was listening to it a lot and I was like, this sounds amazing. I was like, why shouldn't I put it on the record? Like, it sounds sick.
Yeah.
Like it sounds really playful. It sounds good. And like, it's like a minute long, but like,
it's good.
It's like, I don't want it to be any longer. Like that's like in my brain. It like when my brain hears it, it's like, that's the statement. Like that's like the crystallization of that like tinkering project that I was working on for that week or whatever. It's like, it's all for my brain crystallized in that like 1 minute thing. And I was just like, that's it. So that, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah,
because that's, as opposed to like, feeling like it needed to be anything other than what it was. Like, and like some of the things felt like they needed to be longer. Like the last track. I don't know. Have you heard the rest of the record?
Sent it over to me and I got it.
Okay.
I have it. So I have heard.
Oh, cool.
I have heard Scry.
So the
end, especially that last little second of like 50 to 60 seconds where it's really fizzling around and doing something on its own.
Yeah, so like that was like an example. Like that track felt like it needed to be. That was like a really hard one for the record, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. But it felt like the I don't know. Like I hope this is like making sense, but basically I feel like it just the thing, whatever it wants to be, it like at some point in the process of tinkering with it, if it's gonna last, it like presents itself like what it wants to be, and then you like have to let it do that. And like, if you can figure out how to help it do that, that's great. And if you can't, that's cool too. Like sometimes stuff doesn't flower in the way that you want it to. And that's like totally fine. And like for Scry, like for the title track, it like, you know, sometimes you're like working on something, whether it's like a piece of art or like a piece of writing or a piece of music. And it just like, it's like done-ish, but it just like doesn't feel right for some reason. And you don't know why. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, sometimes you just have to let it kind of like ideas percolate until it does feel right. And sometimes it means that a track needs to be 8 minutes long. And sometimes it means that a track is 40 seconds, you know?
Yeah.
And again, Scry is like a digital access workstation kind of release. It still comes, I guess I'm supposing, out of some improvisation, just raw in the studio, but
yeah, it's a lot from improvisation. Wow. It's like, improvise. It's like mostly improvise. It's like, actually like almost all improvising on like these, like either instruments that I was building on my computer or with like hardware or just like vibing on these like kind of like themes or something. Yeah.
And again, I'm just to piece together, while it was recorded over 3 years, I'm assuming most of the editing are kind of final stuff here, where the tracks emerged did come out in the past like 6 or so months, or was there at least a vision in 2019 of like, I've got a finished track, we're just leaving it, and then you came back later and we're like, okay, I'm now seeing I've got all this material that kind of works in there?
I would say it's a combination of both.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it just came as it did.
Yeah. Go ahead. What were you gonna say, Thomas?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, no, I just wanted to touch on like the open zone group. I want to talk to Keith more about that because we finished that Signal Quest record. We finished another record with that band, and sick. We were like having these like really funny conversations about like what to call the music, and like normally those like the label stuff is like kind of annoying to me. It's like you have to do it, but it's like hard to talk about your music and like
the fact that Keith had always been so hands off about it, and literally 9 out of 10 Orange Milk releases just have like internet and experimental. They have never cared about the labels, but with this Goo Age release, he just put Goo Core on there, and he had done at the start of the year a tweet where he's like, okay, I think I'm seeing something, and it was literally just him being like, this is all the Tiny Mixtapes music that you love, Keith. And it was very honest, and I had no qualms with it because he was onto something. He had curated this to begin with, and it was like, Well,
and I think a point that you brought up that I really like, that is exactly what I feel like we were talking about with Signal Quest for this next record, is like ambient actually doesn't, like we all love ambient music, but like it doesn't actually feel like the right thing because the music feels really active. Like, there's like something, I mean, I think ambient has kind of been reclaimed as like, I feel like for a long time it was like really written off as like kind of like as like
a wallpaper
like wallpaper music, or kind of like you get it on the end cap at a Target, or like with like weird like rain sounds,
literally music for airports, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, you know what I mean?
There's so much music for airports. You're like, damn, that's really good. That's just a good.
It's good though, but like, I get what you're saying with like ambient music. It's like there's a lot going on though. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of textures, all this stuff. It's not just like some sitting there, just like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
And like Yeah, it is. And it's like, especially the ambient jazz thing is like really interesting too. There's like a lot of interesting questions about like foreground, background, like active, passive, like that. Yeah. That I think it's just like, I feel like when we were, thinking about this new Signal Quest record, it was like, it just feels like ambient, like not the right.
Yeah.
It feels like more active and like, well, I love ambient music. Like it's no shade to ambient music at all. It's just, it feels different, than that. And so I like, actually, yeah, I like what you're bringing up about what Keith said. And also the point that you made, you're like hitting the nail on the head. It's like that we're talking about that like the last few weeks, like what, and it's kind of a catch-all. Like experimentalism is kind of a catch-all.
Exactly.
Thomas and I have had this debate before. We've literally had this, and it's so at the end of the day, it's like, please, I gotta agree with Thomas. Don't classify everything as experimental, but also it's so like this is an umbrella.
Yeah,
but also
yeah,
it's like I get it. You kind of have to.
Sometimes,
but I kind of like the vibe of like making up your own like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever that might be. It's like this like feels very poetic in a way. Like
it does, yeah.
Coming up with like playing with words in kind of a fun way that feels like it resonates with the music. Like
right now I'm trying to get a group of people online and I'm seeing if we can get, and it's what these are two of the albums in here. It's Fourth World Music Volume 2. It's On the Other Ocean, and then Keyboard Fantasies and Pauline Oliveros' Accordion and Voice. And just rating all four of those and looking at it not as maybe just ambient per se, but as like this is computer music or a complete rejection of computer music between 77 to 86. And look at that period and just kind of how broadly swamped it was. But like there are huge connections here where it's like Pauline and John and David all have releases on Lovely Music. David had curated releases with Pauline going back to the 60s, and Beverly Gun Cloverland was just completely out of that sphere, but he was making this private press synth music that also exists. There was a ton of private press synth music in the 80s that was totally outside of those spheres, but contemplated that. And I think when you just have to look at it almost from a broad curational scale and then just be like, make up your own mind about this stuff and vibe with it as you will. That's kind of where lining too. So.
Is this for ambient heads?
This is for ambient head too. Plateau of posting.
Ambient heads is like your ambient music listening group?
It's like
a listening group. We're trying to maybe if this works,
that's the thing you're talking about here. Okay.
Are you familiar with Reddit, Cole?
Oh yeah.
The website known as reddit.com.
Yeah,
I come out of some groups that rate music and stuff on there.
Yeah.
And because no one would rate ambient music, I came up with a joke rate that would involve Chill Out as a one song conceptual piece.
Yeah.
And 94 Discount, and then Keith Fullerton Whitman's playthroughs and it's the Stars of the Lid album between Blasted Orchestra and Tired Sounds. So it was cool. And it was like the joke was we're gonna rank all of these. You can decide a number between 1 to 10 and Chill Out one with a 9 out of 10, which was that was very pleasing to see. I forced that result, but I was really earnestly happy to see people sit there with this music and like really try to contemplate it and get out of a sphere of like, it's just ambient and be like having fun with Oval or really having a good time with Keith and being amazed at just like the textures you're getting out of that stuff.
That's sick that they're into it.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, do we have any more to add on to that?
I guess, the only other thing I guess is just, you had mentioned earlier, you're doing new releases. Are you doing new stuff with Lynn? How's your relationship with Lynn doing music and stuff there?
Great. I feel like we work on a lot of different things together. So we have, this new Signal Quest record for Orange Milk that you'll see. It's actually kind of funny. We're doing the thing. We're changing the band name to Signal Quest, so the band name is now going to be the name of our first record, which is like kind of like a weird, like it's like a weird like metadata kind of funny joke thing. I feel like whatever, but it's also like a very
did it.
name.
Fubushi did it, so you can't do it.
So totally, yeah. Yeah, and this like I have like a lot of stuff like that I'm just like tinkering with all the time, like in the vault or whatever. So like Wynn and I have some new duo material that we're like slowly working on. But yeah, I try not to put like a deadline on too much stuff. I just like let it kind of do its thing. And
it happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
It really
take time.
That's sick.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of does it for our main questions that we had here, but we do have a couple listener questions.
Oh my goodness.
If you want to take those.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So I guess our first one here, it says main influences. We kind of covered it, but I guess if you want to.
You got anyone else to shout out? Go for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of, since you brought up Beyond the Other Ocean, like, I feel like I'll just maybe say this. Instead of doing like main influences, here's some music that was super influential to me, like specific pieces of music or whatever. David Behrman's On the Other Ocean for sure.
Nice.
And Benny Maupin's Jewel in the Lotus, which is like an old ECM. Benny Maupin's like a bass clarinetist. He's like on all the like Electric Era Mile stuff and the like Mwandishi band, like Herbie Hancock's Mwandishi band stuff. I cannot recommend Jewel in the Lotus enough. The first track on that record, Ensenada, is like neck and neck with Behrman's On the Other Ocean.
Sick.
For me. I feel like yeah, and then obviously like the like Marion Brown, the saxophonist, like sax players is like Marion Brown, Wayne Shorter, Pharoah Sanders, and Getachew Mercuria. Those are like the mains. I feel like yeah,
that's sick. Okay, so this next one, it says favorite snack.
Oh, so many. See, honestly, it's been so hot. I feel like I've really been loving cereal.
Dude, what's your go-to?
Just
cereal?
like a cold bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
Well, here's where it gets controversial. I love grape nuts.
Oh no, grape nuts slap. You're not finding any crap for us here about grape nuts.
Are grape nuts a cereal?
Grape nuts is a cereal. Yeah, it's got the consistency of cat litter.
Really?
They're blenders.
They're so good.
You familiar with oat blenders?
No, I would love to be.
Don't worry, but grape nuts, that one's actually low key terrific.
Dude, I've never had grape nuts. I'm gonna have to try grape nuts.
Oh, they're like a sensory experience.
That's sick. I'm gonna go to the store and actually buy some. That sounds really good. My go-to recently, I was in a big cereal phase like earlier last year or something. And I was really into this generic brand called like, it was like the generic for, I don't know, there's probably a name brand for it, but they're called Honey Smacks or something. They're like the puffed rice that are like sweet.
Yeah. With the frog?
Yes, dude, they're so good. Yeah. And it's like, I would go to like Smart and Final or whatever, and they'd obviously sell the off-brand in the big bag. And then it's like that cereal was so good because it's so sugary and just like not good for you. You know what I mean? I would honestly just like put it in a plastic bag and like take it as a snack to work.
Oh, yeah. Cereal's so good.
Cereal is amazing and it's like super versatile and you can do a lot of things with cereal.
Oatmeal. I'm shouting out the lads. All you got to do is just add a little extra stuff to them and you're in business.
Yeah.
Wait, what's that one called again?
Oatmeal.
You're just talking about like straight up oatmeal.
I will tell you though, I'm going to give you a secret hit here, Cole. If you're making instant oatmeal or doing any kind of oatmeal boiling, add a little bit, just chip it off a little bit of chocolate in there.
That's probably dank.
Okay. So can I offer like my own, like what I like to do with oatmeal? That's because it's funny you bring up the chocolate thing, because actually the vibe I've really been on with oatmeal is doing, instead of sweet oatmeal, doing savory oatmeal.
Okay. Please tell me about the savory oatmeal secrets here. I haven't been able to. I need to.
So you get a pot, you put the oats and the water in it, shred and chop up a bunch of kale, just like really fine, and put it in the water, and then mince a bunch of garlic and put the garlic in the water. So you have the oats, garlic, and a bunch of kale in the water. Then start to cook it. When it starts to boil, crack an egg on top of the kale so the egg will like float over the kale, and then cover it up again so the egg will cook. With the steam.
Yeah.
Then you get a bowl, and in the bowl put like a scoop of tahini. And then when the egg's done cooking, you like scoop some of the like garlic, kale, oatmeal into the bowl, stir it into the tahini, put the egg on top, soy sauce.
Wow.
Rips.
What a wild ride I'm having here.
It's so good.
Really good.
No one ever tells you to add kale or garlic to oatmeal, but like
savory oatmeal.
Oatmeal itself is such this phenomenal base where it'll just go anywhere with you. Oh my God.
Dude, and like sweet oatmeal is good too, but we're just so used to. I feel like until you like see the other way, you like. I was always thinking about it as a sweet food.
But now I'm seeing it as a protein food. I'm seeing it as a protein food.
True.
It can be. It can be anything. It's very versatile.
Are you a fan of grits at all?
I love grits. I would not say I'm good at like cooking or preparing them.
Dude, neither am I actually, but I think of like grits and cream of wheat as like good being savory. Yeah. I've never had oatmeal in a savory way, but I've had like grits or cream of wheat in that way. I actually do think I'm also a bigger fan of cream of wheat than oatmeal, though.
Love cream of wheat.
Cream of wheat is so good.
For sure.
And I love making it with milk and then just raisins and some cinnamon. It's so good.
Oh, yeah. I haven't had cream of wheat in a long time, but I remember loving it. I remember actually preferring it when I was younger.
Yeah, exactly. Like I prefer it for some reason, but I don't know. I feel like oatmeal with instant oatmeals and stuff is just so much quicker than having to boil a pot of cream of wheat. Like if there was like instant cream of wheat, I feel like I would eat it a lot more. And there's definitely times that like I'll have like cream of wheat cravings. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna have to try savory oatmeal, dude. That sounds good.
It's so good.
Okay, so this next question, it says, is there a piece of software / instrument / recording environment that you've dreamed of recording with?
Church organ. Like big church organ.
Yeah.
Yeah. In like recording in a church with like an organist would be very sick. That would
be pretty sick.
It's like, I mean, it's just like, I feel like all, do you know the like Ellen Artbro stuff with like the brass quintet? They're like, there's some like.
I know. I only know. I mean, I'm thinking of. She has the release this year. It's Living Torch. It's Callie Malone. I'm thinking of her.
Oh yeah, Callie Malone.
And the digital stuff that she did.
It's like, I feel like church organ is one of the. Or like I would love to record with a harpist.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Yeah. I feel like both those instruments, they have like a really kind of like sublime energy about them. They feel like larger than life, and they just like sort of tap into this like. They tap into this like other like dimension of like musical energy that's like can't be like, you can't emulate it, you know? Like it's like they're very like, I would love to record with either of those instruments. Yeah.
Dude, make it happen on the next record.
I know. Yeah.
You got to do it.
Totally. Manifesting it.
Manifesting it. Speaking it into existence. Yeah. All right. So this last listener question here, it says favorite film soundtrack.
There are many. I love soundtracks. Like, in fact, with like the stuff with Lynn, like a lot of that music is like it's like us geeking out about like video game soundtrack stuff.
Oh, really?
Like,
that's sick.
Which ones in particular? I'm so curious.
I mean, we're both really into like JRPG soundtracks.
Okay.
Like that's like, so, I mean, recently, I just recently started replaying Chrono Cross for PS1 for like the first PlayStation.
Oh, nice.
Like
we talked to someone.
Yanusori Mitsuda. Like it's just that soundtrack's dynamite. Like
I think we talked with Rollins and Powers about Chrono Trigger. Or if it wasn't them,
really?
It would have been Mux about Chrono Trigger.
No, dude,
and neither of us were PS1 or SNES gamers. I played Halo.
But yeah,
I played Medal of Honor Frontline.
Jen and Matt were...
HD. I know, and Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Yeah.
I know my soundtracks. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the Chrono Trigger soundtrack's amazing. Chrono Cross. There's these two games on PlayStation 1, these like, these two JRPGs called Suikoden 1 and 2 that are like super important to me, both the music and the gameplay. What else? There's so many. Movie soundtracks. The Blade Runner soundtrack is like one of the all-time greats.
Oh yeah,
like CS80. It's like everything done on like Yamaha CS80. That one, and that it's also really like electroacoustic in a way that I like. Like sometimes the saxophone on it is an actual saxophone, and sometimes it's like a CS80 patch. And I like, and that's actually there's like a lot of that kind of influence on my record on Scry too, where it's like sometimes the sounds are electronic and sometimes they're real, and like sometimes they're mixed together. I like blending that like digital and analog like vibe, which I think the Blade Runner soundtrack does really well.
Yeah, that's sick. Okay.
The Breath.
What were you saying?
I was just gonna say the Breath of the Wild soundtrack.
Dude, yeah, that one is so good. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, it's so good.
I also came across, I got like a YouTube recommended for it, but like the Donkey Kong like underwater song.
Oh, the underwater theme.
Yeah, so good.
David Wise. Yeah, that one's that's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
That soundtrack.
So who composed it? David Wise?
David Wise, yeah.
Oh, sick.
There's so much good music on the Donkey Kong soundtrack.
For sure. Yeah. I feel like a lot of the early Nintendo games too all have like really good soundtracks. They're all just like
64 games have incredible.
Yeah.
I've sampled what is it? The Perfect Dark soundtrack being very good at trip hop. The Bomberman 64 soundtrack being incredibly funny drum and bass music. Like
same with like if you remember like Ape Escape on PlayStation has like a legendary drum and bass soundtrack.
The one game that stands out for me from all that era, it's Rez, which was a Dreamcast game that's been ported to 360, been ported to PlayStation 4 or 5 at this point, and those I think are really phenomenal tracks. The Key 5, which it's a rail shooter, and as you shoot stuff down, that creates the tempo and creates more sounds.
Really? That's interesting.
I still think that's like the pinnacle of, I mean, Panzer Dragoon is a better rail shooter, but Rez has just this incredible sound design. And
I'm going to have to look it up.
Always
I don't know that one.
I need to play through again.
One other soundtrack just to throw out there that's dynamite is Echo the Dolphin.
Dude, that game is sick.
Did Echo the Dolphin. Oh.
Yeah.
The music in actually there's like the music on the Echo the Dolphin for Sega Genesis, like the first one is bananas, and then also the like I don't remember if it was Sega Saturn or the Dreamcast one has some out of control music on it. It's like really, really wild. It's like super worth looking up.
That's sick. Where do you find all this stuff? Do you just like YouTube it or?
Yeah, mostly YouTube, I guess.
Sick.
I feel like Lynn and I have these like really, really long like YouTube playlists of video games.
Oh, that's tight.
We just like throw stuff back and forth.
Are you playing anything right now? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I just started replaying Chrono Cross. Like,
that's right. Yeah,
maybe like a week ago. Yeah. What else have I been really into? I play a lot of like JRPG stuff, I guess. So like I played those Suikoden games again. I played this game called Disco Elysium that actually Matthew Rollins.
I don't think I've ever seen Disco Elysium
it's wild.
Played. Goodness.
It's really intense. It's really good though. It's like reading a book. Just like has incredible lore and like, but yeah, I feel like I play a lot of like old RPGs.
It happens.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I
play Fall Guys. I think the soundtrack there is pretty popular. I think that game is
cool. I'll look it up.
Anyways, does that wrap up our film soundtrack question here? A game soundtrack it turned into?
Yeah.
Tight. Well, I think that just about does it for all of our listener questions. Where can people keep up with all things Cole Pulice?
My Instagram is just my name, Cole.Pulice, COLE.PULICE. And then my Bandcamp is just my name, .bandcamp.com, which is where like all the pre-order stuff for Scry is. And, yeah, those are probably the two best places.
Oh, yeah.
Sick. Well, we do have one more question here. It's kind of the biggest of the show. Maddie, do you want me to take it?
I'll take it, Thomas, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, Maddie will ask it.
Cole, you're playing one of your JRPGs and, you're having a great time here. Everything's going great. But unfortunately, there's been a patch to your JRPG and it's now at 4 dimensions. And when you're running a boss battle or whatever, you have to fight a rat. And unfortunately, this rat's going to jump literally out of the TV and straight into your mouth. And the rat is going to jump into your mouth. And you have to choose. You get the choice, though. You're given the RPG choice here of the rat can jump in your mouth head first or butt first. And why would you want either choice?
Okay. I need to clarify. Do I get to spit out the rat?
You make your own.
You make your own adventure.
Yeah.
You cast your own fate.
You choose your own destiny.
So, I would say, okay, definitely butt first. And then I would, because I feel like otherwise it would like claw and bite my tongue.
Yeah, that's a good concern to have.
And like, I feel like, maybe, it could still like kick and scratch, but I feel like there's something about having the like, I feel like head first, I would feel obligated to like eat it or something.
Dude,
and I don't want to do.
The last people I had on the show, for some reason, one of their first instincts was like, if it goes head first, then like, I'm going to have to bite down and its eyes are going to pop out of its head. And I was like,
exactly.
Oh my God, dude.
That's exactly. I feel like obligated. It's like, yeah. And I feel like there's still, if it was butt first, I could just like, we could like be pals afterwards. I could just like spit it out.
Dude, that's my go-to actually. Yeah. You take it butt first and you pet it on the head, calm it down. And then you become homies and make some ratatouille together or something,
Bingo.
Exactly. Well, that was dope, Cole. That's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. and Net Radio every Saturday, 4 p.m. This has been Cole Pulice. Thanks for being on the show, Cole.
Thanks for having me.